Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From London, Dario Betti, MEF CEO.
Welcome to Perspectives, the podcast of the Mobile Ecosystem Forum that looks at the people, the topics, the company that make our ecosystem. And I'm very happy to discuss one of the hot topics of the moment. It is October 2024. If you're listening to one of our recordings, telecom APIs, specifically those applications that provide authentication, security, and sometimes even more, they are requesting directly through a telecom network what is happening. Or in this case, we'll say slightly different flavor. But I'm doing that with somebody that you probably are very much aware of, a figure we've seen in different roles in the past and currently is that the VP of products at Unibeam. I'm talking about Carlos DaSilva. Hello, Carlos, and welcome.
Hello, Dario. It's a pleasure to be here. I listen to a lot of podcasts, various sorts of them, and recently the MEF one. So it's actually a great pleasure to be myself in one of them.
Well, great to have you here. And as I say, great to have you on what I would define a pretty hot topics right now. A lot of people are talking about this. And as always, lots of people that have got different agenda, different understanding, sometimes more or less understanding. Let's get some of those myths out there. Destroyed and equally give a bit of a in-depth view of what we might be talking about. But before, there is a usual questions here, perspectives, which is, what's your personal view? What's your perspective on this market, the market for authentication, security in telecom? Is that something that is going to really revolutionize the market?
Well, it has to. If you are an MNO, you hope so. And you hope the real question is, will the MNOs still be relevant in this authentication market for the next 20 years as they've been for the past 20 years? For the past 20 years, we've seen different industries, banking, healthcare, e-commerce, etc., telling their users we need to implement two-factor authentication. We've seen CISOs and the entire security industry saying you need to do multi-factor authentication. Probably 95% of that is used with an SMS OTP. Not something that MNOs have pushed themselves, but things that aggregators that are selling A2P SMS have found as a fantastic use case, and especially internationally, we have like 70% of the market, which has been to two-factor authentication with SMS OTPs. So MNOs, without really initially being at the creators of this, have been fundamentally the authenticator for an entire industry because everybody uses SMS OTP to log into their bank, Amazon, whatever it is. That has been true for the last 20 years, and it's starting to change now. And it's when we looked at what's changing, and that's the question is, where is it going then? We see some regulators saying SMS OTP is not secure enough. You banks need to find something else. So they don't dictate what banks need to do. They just say, you need to stop doing SMS two-factor authentication. You need to do something else. And that's true mostly in Asia, but several regulators are looking at it that way. Other enterprises are saying, SMS OTP, I don't really have a concern necessarily on the security of it or the risk associated with it. But pricing is getting out of control, is becoming an unpredictable, uncontrollable cost, and I need to find something else than the two-factor authentication over SMS. And they're going to their own solutions, can be email, can be rolling code, authentication apps, several solutions. And then you have a fundamentally new one, which is happens in different countries, but it's very strong in Europe, which is governments themselves are saying, I need to fundamentally change how my citizens act in this digital space. And for instance, in Europe, their regulation is launched called EDAS2, which will mandate by 2026 every EU state to offer to their citizens a digital wallet. And that digital wallet is used to prove who you are, but also prove a lot of elements of who you are. So you can go to a government entity and prove your address, not by printing a utility bill like we've done for years, but by showing your app and approving it through your digital wallet that you indeed live at this address, or this indeed is your phone number. or that indeed you have this driver's license, etc., etc. So there is a lot of things happening basically in this market. It's going to evolve, and it's not going to look like the last 20 years of authentication where MNOs benefited by not doing much, just providing SMS two-factor authentication and generating a lot of margin out of this service.
Well, it's reassuring to hear that so many of our different ecosystem, we call it MF. So we have an identity area, we have a wholesale area, we have a SMS business messaging area. Now I kind of all really talking to each other. Before, when it probably wasn't the case. A lot of conversions, a lot of topic, a lot of companies coming together. So then that usually comes a bit of a question because of what is the roles. But in terms of your role at Unibeam, where do you position yourself? You are a solution provider. Is that correct? And what kind of solution provider in this?
Yeah, so we are a technology provider that offers a solution as a SaaS service, and we offer it to mobile operators to enable mobile operators to stay relevant as an authenticator, as they've been with SMS, but do it and stay relevant as the next phase of authentication, and this time doing it with a SIM. So our main product is SIA, and stands for SIM Identity Authentication. So this SIM-based identity authentication is unique from what we can see in the market. There is other solutions that rely on the mobile operator, but they rely on information that comes from the network. And we rely on information that comes specifically from the SIM. It might sound like semantics, but it's quite different. If I can move away completely out of the telecom space and take an analogy that hopefully will explain it a bit more. Let's look at the finance industry. And you will have heard on TV or seen on movies that people out of the bank get robbed, that the trucks that go take the money out of the bank get robbed, that eventually even inside the bank, the tellers get robbed and get all their money. All of this is the finance infrastructure. Is we can associate it to the mobile network. So you get a lot of information that is that crosses this network, and network can be hacked. But inside that bank, there is a vault. And that vault is never hacked. You don't hear in the news that somebody hacked the vault of a bank. You might have heard about hacking a bank or hacking the truck that carries the money, hacking the people that take money out of the ATM. But you don't hear, or maybe some old movies, but you don't hear people getting into a vault and hacking inside the vault. The vault in a telecoms world is the SIM. And it's actually a multi-layer vault. So you have the SIM itself is the main vault. And then within that vault, you have another vault specific to the mobile operator. And inside that second vault, you have a cryptographic key that's called a KI key. And this key is only known by the second vault and only known by the operator. What this information does, and the fact that nobody has hacked inside that vault, it basically secures that when you have a SIM that identifies you, the MNO can trust that this SIM is only yours. There is not another one like that one. And if we want to take an example of how true that is, I'm going to give you another example. As you heard on TV, on movies, on reports that such person is sued because they made these calls, and the police did a subpoena to the MNO and said, yeah, this person with this phone made call this other person at that time. You never hear somebody saying, that wasn't me, because the SIM, that vault, can be easily cloned, so it wasn't me that made this. You cannot prove it's me. That doesn't happen. If you have these calls, it's you. It can only be you that's making these calls from that SIM. The other thing is when you travel, or now it's less of a problem, but a few years ago with Bill Shock, you'll travel, you end up with $1,000 in roaming fees. And you cannot tell to your operator, wait a minute, you cannot prove that it's really me. I'm not going to pay this invoice, because everybody knows that a SIM can be cloned, and you cannot therefore prove that it's me. That doesn't happen either. So the entire ecosystem, financial ecosystem, and to some aspects judiciary ecosystem, relies on the fact that this SIM, that vault, cannot be hacked, or at least has not been hacked in mass market where it seemed to be dangerous. That vault is what we use. The security inside that vault is the same thing that Unibeam use. So we create another vault. We put another vault inside the big vault next to the one that the MNO used to identify the SIM. We create another one. We create our own encryption keys. We create our own encryption APIs to talk in and out of the vault. And we offer this, or we enable the MNO to offer this to enterprises to authenticate their users the same way the MNO authenticates a subscriber. And that's how we go about it.
So you are the technology, the solution side, and is there a problem right now with the supply side or with the demand side or everything? What needs to be done in this market to get it started, really?
I think that the target, as I said earlier, is to replace SMS OTP by keeping the benefits that SMS OTP brings to the market and fixing the flaws of SMS OTP. The benefits of SMS OTP are very clear. It's ubiquitous, it works everywhere, and it's very easy. If you are an enterprise, you do an API to one of the many aggregators, send an API to send a one-time code, you send that one-time password, the user gets it, uses it to log in, and that's it. There is no real education, training, onboarding. You can do that and to any kind of user. You don't need to know what kind of phone they have, if it's an old one, a new one. You don't need if they're doing it from their phone or if they're trying to log in from their computer. It's a very standard, unique experience that everybody is used to. Whether you're a tech-savvy engineer, customer of a bank, or if you're a retired citizen, not very much tech-savvy, everybody can use SMS OTP, and that's been the success of SMS OTP. Not just that it's ubiquitous, but it is very easy to use. The disadvantage of SMS OTP is the risk. It's the risk factor that it leads to phishing, it leads to SIM swap, it leads to, can even be listened to with eavesdrop, like you can see what an SMS OTP is going in through the chain from sender to receiver. So it's unsafe. So banks are saying, okay, I want to keep all this easiness of use, but I want something that doesn't have the problems and the security risks of SMS OTP today. So that's the demand. The problem with the supply is that the solutions that exist today in the market address part of the demand. So there is a famous solution with the GSMA. It's called Number Verify. Fantastic initiative from the MNOs that overall are saying API is a great business. There's a lot of information that we, the MNOs, have on our networks that can add value to enterprises or add value to users. We need to sell this information through APIs. This is a great initiative. The first use cases that come in these APIs are about authentication. It's not the only ones. There is also a lot of them about quality on demand and slicing and things like that. But it happens that the first ones that are being commercialized are only about authentication, and namely Number Verify and SIM swap. In the case of Number Verify, the way it works, it identifies the IP address of a phone that is that with the app that is trying to log on a phone, and that triggers a request to the MNO. The MNO detects the IP address that is sending this request, goes into the MNO's database, compare the IP address to the phone number that is being associated to that IP address at that time, and goes back to the application with the information of that phone number. And if it matches the phone number of the user that's trying to log in, then that's a success. So it's very efficient, very simple. But there is one fundamental limitation, is that it only works on apps that are on phones that trigger this IP address through cellular, because the MNO can only compare your phone to your IP address if you're on their network. If you're on Wi-Fi, there's nothing they can do. If you are on a computer or on a tablet, there is nothing you can do either. What that means is if you are a customer of a bank, you might end up in a situation where you log in from your phone attached to a cellular network. And when you log in, this authentication with the phone number happens on the back end. You as a user don't see anything. You don't get an SMS because now the authentication took place silently through this IP address verification. So it's seamless and you feel, okay, that's great. And then you go to your computer at night, at home, and you try to log again to your bank. And now you're going to get an SMS OTP. And you say, okay, you're used to that. So you answer with the SMS OTP. And then you're going to go back on your phone, and now you're at home. So you're attached to your Wi-Fi network, and this authentication with cellular doesn't work anymore. And again, you're going to get an SMS OTP on your app on your phone. So the experience is not always consistent for the end user. For tech-savvy users, it might not really matter. If they're curious, they can look into it and get an answer. For other customers, they might feel like this is dangerous. Why do they get a different experience, whether they're on their computer, on their phone, on Wi-Fi, on cellular, And it might lead to be counterintuitive and counterproductive by scaring the end user instead of reassuring him of a strong authentication that's silent. So that is that's the situation today. So the supply side offers a solution that is very strong when it works perfectly as designed. It's great, but it doesn't work all the time. And that's a bit of the challenge. We saw that challenge at Unibeam because instead of trying to detect an IP address, we talk to the SIM on the phone. And we can talk to the SIM on the phone even if the cellular data of the phone is a cutoff. We talk to the SIM on the phone through the signaling channel. So as long as the phone is on, even if the user has turned off cellular because he's in a roaming situation, doesn't want to get charges on roaming, we can still talk to the phone, still talk to the SIM, authenticate the user, and provide an answer to the bank. If the user is trying to log in from a computer or a tablet, then we will talk to the phone. There will be a pop-up that is displayed on the phone. The user approves that pop-up on the phone, and the login goes back into the bank. The user gets access to the bank. So it's always the same experience, whether the user is roaming, not roaming, on Wi-Fi, not on Wi-Fi, on an all-feature phone without not even a smartphone, or in the latest iPhone 16 Pro or tablet computer. It doesn't matter. It works consistently, always the same. And that's our way to trying to do what I said earlier, which is bring a solution that, like SMS OTP, works all the time, doesn't need to have a strong education of the customer base. So the bank doesn't need to worry, I'm going to get a lot of questions of some folks that don't understand what's going on. It's going to overload my customer service with things that I don't want them to answer. We're in the business, as they tell us very often, we're in the business of lending money, not teaching a new technology to our customer base. So this solution here is self-explanatory across the board. And it's easy to use for the subscribers and for the enterprise as well.
Let me see if I've done my homework here correctly, listening to you. If you are a telco player, this is a potential new revenue stream which you're considering, and you might want to explore, and with the potential replacement of the SMS. If you're a consumer, you separate your customer experience. It becomes a bit more transparent because you might not need to take a separate phone number and put it in somewhere. And if you are an enterprise, it's security. Do I get it wrong? So everybody is aligned on the consumer side, on the consumer and supply side, on why to do it, or there is a bit of education to do, or people still not getting it?
Well, you always need to educate a bit the users or inform them, but you're informing them on something that they're very used to. So the way we work is a pop-up that asks them a question. Do you want to log into your bank? Do you want to log into this service? Whatever it is, there is a written English question or whatever language that the bank, the country it is. And we could say that that's enough for the user to say, yes, I'm trying right now to log in, and I get a pop-up on my phone that asks me, do you try to log in? How much education there is on that? It's new. So the education is more that it's something that they don't have an SMS anymore. They now have this thing. So when you register into a bank and you're asked to put your phone number, as we do now for SMS, there needs to be a little bit of a sentence or two of the bank saying, hey, by the way, we're going to log in you with a new service. So the user is not surprised, but that happens when you need it. And you're going to see this pop-up, and the pop-up itself is self-explanatory for the users. And the other thing is we're all used for this kind of pop-up. So for those of us that use Microsoft 365, once in a while you're in your laptop logging into Microsoft 365, and Microsoft tells you, hey, there's going to be a pop-up on your phone. Please write these 2 digits on the pop-up and approve it. The same thing happens with Amazon, Google, etc. So these pop-up situations where you go to your phone to click into a pop-up are already quite known for the end user, so it's not surprising. So there is a little bit of information, but not a training on what they need to do or not. It's a question with a button, OK, cancel on the pop-up itself.
So let me talk about something not necessarily immediately contiguous to these, but it's everywhere. So let's talk about AI. What's the impact we are seeing now on the security market from AI? Trend or fall almost should be the questions. Is it going to help authentication and security?
So AI to us makes authentication more complicated, but it also adds a new type of authentication that we call business transaction requirements. And when we looked at SMS OTP or number verify, what it does is authenticating that the user has the right phone. as possession of this information. So it could be a fraudster, but it could be a fraudster that has the right phone. So you're not authenticating the person, you're authenticating the phone. That's what SMS OTP has been done. That's what Number Verify does. When you go into AI, it makes, for instance, phishing much easier because you have SaaS services, phishing as a service. You pay $200 per month. Some are for $50 for like 4 days, and they will deploy everything they need to phish the customers you want to target. So this is possible just because AI makes all this technology, the barrier of entry very, very low, so people will try. So more people will try, more of these phishings are going to happen. AI is going to also create a completely new type of fraud. So right now we're doing this podcast. If we were in a webinar, I will be talking in a webinar, or if you were doing a board meeting at the MEF and with a video conference, you will have a lot of people joining. But with the AI these days, you don't know if the person that you see and listen to is the right person. You'll have tremendous examples online on how anybody now can very easily record you, Dario, in a lot of the many online footage that we have about you, your voice online, recreate a fake you, inject you into a meeting, and we go into a board meeting and tell a lot of things to your board members that you, Dario, don't want to say, but a fraudster will want to say. Or have someone that is not from F jumping into this board meeting, impersonating another board member, and listening to what everything the board and strategic things you're going to do. So it is not enough to see somebody and listen to somebody on a video call anymore. So how do you protect against that? Because it is somebody that stole your password or stole a cookie, injected himself into the link to this video. That's very easy to do. So they're in the video and you don't know if it's the right person. So here there's another use cases. So for instance, I was talking to Telefonica. Telefonica is seriously has a problem with this, and they're using deep vision, which is a way to record the profile of some of their key employees of blinking your eyelids when they blink, to detect that if somebody was faking you in a conference, they will be able to say, oh, that is not really the person we think it is. But for that to work, you need to previously record and store that information. What is the blinking pattern of Dario? Mm-hmm. So it is, and this has been, it's called deep vision, that you can look it up. So it's a solution, but there is other ones. This one requires to record your pattern, blinking pattern previously. Let's think of another solution where Unibeam can help, and MNOs can help enterprises. Let's say that when you are in this video call at your board meeting, you get a message that says, please, you're going to receive a pop-up on your phone, and the session you're in, all of you now, is 2225. Please enter 2225 in the pop-up you get on your phone. And that pop-up on your phone will authenticate that the real user associated to that account. And again, we go back to that SIM and that vault. There is only one vault like this that can answer that pop-up. It's the right person. So in a very easy process, if the video recording is that, or the video conference is that sensitive, you can have everybody authenticate that it is truly that person that is on that video call. This is a need and a solution that did not exist 10 years ago. You didn't have this problem of if you see somebody in a video call, you trust that's the right person. Now we're going to go in an era where it's not enough. You need something else, and it's not a login. You're not logging in a website anymore. You're authenticating yourself. We call that business transaction authentication. It could be to authenticate that you're the right person on a video call. It could be to authenticate that if you're providing consent of, I don't know, your kids going to this park or whatever, somebody who really wants you, not call you because that can be fake too, but want to authenticate any kind of information, sign this contract, let your kids go on a field trip. They send this business transaction to your phone and you approve it. And that becomes almost legally binding because it is truly your phone that authenticated this answer. So this business transaction opportunity, it's massive to MNOs. I personally think that will be even bigger than the simple authentication for user logins into a website, as SMS is.
It's interesting. You're right. There is the program we're using right now to record this podcast has already made, without me asking, a copy of my voice. So we could produce hours and hours of me talking. Let's hope not. I feel always compulsory to go and stop and start from the very beginning of what we your career was as well. It's in wholesale. So many things are changing. So is that change in wholesale? You were at PCCW for about 12 years, almost 13, equally previously at Orange. So you lived it from a different sides of the world. It's now the future of wholesale, the future of cybersecurity, secure communication. Is that where we're going?
Well, if we look at wholesale, whether it's voice when it started in the 90s, whether it's SMS, whether it's international transmission, those are different services. The common added value of international wholesale is to establish a contract between a customer in one country and a provider in another country. That seems simple. But if you're an enterprise and you want to send SMS to subscribers in 10, 20, 30, 40 countries, 4 MNOs in each country, you are not going to sign 200 contracts. And these MNOs don't want to sign contracts with 10,000 enterprises around the world. So besides the technology component to transit information, there is a contractual hub that wholesale is providing. And that's true whether it was voice, SMS, or data. I think that this component is not going to change in whatever new services are coming in. Here, if we talk about authentication, you have an MNO that owns the SIMs for these users, but then you have tons of enterprises around the world that might want to authenticate these subscribers of these MNOs. The MNO, again, is not going to sign with 10, 20,000, 30,000 enterprises around the world, and one enterprise is not going to sign with 800 MNOs around the world. So that hubbing solution in the middle, both for technically send an API to one spot and have this API trigger whatever MNO is required, and contractually sign with one entity, pay one entity, have the hub distribute the fees to all the MNOs, that is not going to change. I think that this is still a wholesale is going to evolve and sell different value, different products, but the fundamental core of wholesale won't.
So the soul of a wholesale is still there. The fundamental questions of what it does is not changing, but everything around is seems to be somehow in a dynamic twirl, probably based on your experience as well. You might have now seen so many chapters. If anybody were today to ask from your perspective of, how do I get into this market or what do I do? Where would you tell them to start? So where is the next Carlos DaSilva coming from? Where would you, if you were yourself, where would you start right now?
So I would say don't focus on authentication only, because authentication is a very crowded space. There is a lot of solutions in the market that are either free, like passkeys, or that are government regulated, like digital wallets, or a lot of commercial solutions. Among those, there is one solution offered by MNOs, which is number verified so far, but it is a very competitive market. So my advice will be get into this market, but don't just look at authentication. Look at everything else you can do. And I mentioned business transactions, which I think is very promising. And if you see that in these other segments, there is much less competition and a lot of problems that are not being solved by any solution today. We also have a solution with the same SIM to solve the problem of robocalling and branded calls validation and purpose of calls support. So all these are new segments that pile on top of each other and that are good for MNOs. My advice will be, do not only look at authentication. Of course, look at authentication, but do not look only at authentication because it's a very competitive space.
Wow, great. Well, perfect. And our half hour has flown away. So, Carlos, it looks like, however, this is a chapter of the much bigger story. I know that you're also going to be involved apart from our events, where we usually host you on a webinar in a few days. So you can find all of that on our website at MEF, and more information, and do sign if you are interested or watch the recording later on. However, for today, this is probably it. At least I say for now. Carlos, thank you very much for joining us today at Perspectives.
Thank you, Dario. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.